All right. Welcome, everybody, to the Sentinels of Liberty podcast. I am your host, Redbeard, and happy Saturday to everybody. I am joined this evening by Tom Eddlem, as I always like to say, my resident economist, the guy who always keeps agreeing to come back for some reason, and I certainly appreciate it. So, Tom, thanks for coming back. As we were just talking about, you had just thrown out a new article. So if you want to do a little introduction for those of you, or for those who may not know who you are, and talk to us about the recent article, and I guess we'll just start there.
Sure. I'm Tom Eddlem, and I have half a voice today, but I'm coming on anyway. I feel great, but I sound terrible. I'm the blue-collar economist. I am the William Norman Grigg Fellow for the Libertarian Institute, and I wrote a recent article for the Institute on Tuesday about, actually the title I think was changed after it was published, but the essence of it was that how do I put this? The succeeding generations after the baby boomers are not doing better. That was basically it. And that libertarians, like I picked on John Stossel of 2020 fame, and they're by constantly pushing this propaganda about how everybody's doing better, everything's fine, it's not solving the problem. The problem is there's a glacial freeze in upward mobility for the bottom two-thirds of society, and it's by government policy, not by markets. And he needs to, and he and others need to acknowledge that. Otherwise, we're going to see a lot more Zoran Mandamis across the country.
Yeah. No, it's as I was reading through your article, and I had mentioned this previously before we started, but for me at least, it was pretty easy to follow. I really enjoyed a lot of the points that you made, and just to that point also, I think it was a really interesting direction, I guess, that Stossel chose, because it's like, like, you've never had it so good. It's like, well, I don't know the people he's talking to, because like you, I'm surrounded by quite a few libertarians myself. Must be the circles we run in. And but even if people aren't libertarians, I've had enough opportunities to talk to younger people. I mean, I'm 32, so I guess I'm kind of in that category. But it becomes one of those things to where, if you actually go out of your home or your building or your business or whatever, and you talk to people, like, you'll find out, like, no, like, they don't have it that good. The reality of it is like, most of these people, like, can barely afford just a small apartment. I mean, you're seeing how many times I've talked to a number of people, even a generation coming after me, to where the common thing is like, it's me and like 7 other friends, and we're renting an apartment or we're renting a house. And it's like, that's what it takes to rent an apartment or a house. And there's like, some of us, like 2 of the guys will, they'll stay in like one of the rooms, and some of the others will stay in another room. And, I mean, this is like, it's nothing lavish, right? But so when I was reading that, and I was seeing how you were explaining it, I was just like, wow, Stossel, like, I typically like him. I think he makes some pretty good points here and there, and he has over time. But that one just seemed really off the mark. And even as a passive observer, not even talking to younger people, I find it really hard to believe that, like, that was a position that he took on, and that some people take on, where they're just like, no, you know what? This is going to hold some weight, Tom, and here's why.
Well, it's like one of those things that they said about Bernie Sanders. Whatever was a problem in the 1980s is a problem now, and whatever wasn't a problem in the 1980s isn't a problem. Like, John Stossel is stuck in his timeline, And
Yeah.
he grew up, he's a baby boomer. So he grew up in that era when, yeah, every generation was better. Every
Hmm.
generation was richer. That's not the
Yeah.
case anymore. It's not that they're getting poorer. They're not.
Yeah.
And there might be a little bit more wealth, but because housing especially has gone up so much
Yeah.
that the proportion of young families that are able to afford homes is much smaller now than it was
Yeah.
in 1980.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. And I would just say on top of that, I mean, at least in my area, especially the, it's always funny when people talk about tax cuts, right? But then it's just like, oh, okay, like you're talking about tax cuts, but then for whatever reason, your tax cuts turned into an extra $200 on my home, that I have that we have to pay a month, or or just an extra expense, another $10 here, another $10 here, and it's just like, well, I don't think that's how tax cuts work, and quite frankly, I think you've increased taxes, and their whole thing when you kind of you catch some of these bureaucrats, right, with their pants down, essentially, is just like, oh well, we're building a new park, or like we're fixing the road, so like we have to justify, but it's not that long. But then it's like a year goes by, another year goes by, and it's like, wait a minute, like I'm pretty sure not only did you keep the taxes you did last year, but you've added more on. And so the cost of living, it just in general, like you said, it's, there is a potential. Yeah, maybe there is a little bit more money. Maybe there is a little bit more earning potential. But, and I think, I don't know if it was Dave Smith I was listening to, or if it had been somebody else, but I think they pointed out the fact of just like, yeah, like that's all good and fine, but in the end of the day, like when you have excessive taxation, when you have all of these other expenses, when you have, people that are having to figure out, like, do we pay for gas or do we pay for food? We can't have both, so we have to figure out how we're going to do this. Um, it, again, it makes me question, like, I don't even know how Stossel, uh, even for being a person of his time, as you put it, it's like, or being stuck in the time, it's like, how do people not see this? And so I
Well,
really,
he's older and he's wealthy,
yeah,
and no, I mean he's not super wealthy, but he's wealthy
yeah,
enough.
he's
And
well
here's
off,
the yeah,
yeah,
and here's the thing: he's stuck in the Cold War dialectic. It's either
yeah,
capitalism or socialism, but our choices today are not capitalism or socialism because nobody's picking socialism. Nobody is picking socialism. All right,
yeah,
Mandami doesn't even know what socialism is. Um,
yeah,
like even the left, when Bernie Sanders says socialism, he doesn't really mean socialism.
right,
So what are the choices? It's crony
yeah,
capitalism or fascism or whatever you want to call
hmm,
it, or free enterprise. Those are the two
right,
choices. And if we think of it as socialism or capitalism, well, the billionaires are always safe
yeah,
because they own the Democratic Party, which is the capitalism with socialism croutons on it,
yeah,
and the other side is the
yeah,
Republicans, that is the crony capitalism owned by the billionaires
yeah.
also. So there's no difference.
Well, and I think too, just to kind of add to that, and it's going a little bit, outside of the domestic realm, but and I just listened to I listened to Daniel Davis because he does a pretty good job of like covering foreign affairs and stuff like that. But he had pointed out, he's in some of the guests that he had on this week had pointed out, like, look, like we like this whole like these dinosaurs in Congress that are just perpetually stuck in the Cold War. Like, look, they're not going to change their minds, right? But like the average person has to fundamentally understand that we're not living in the Cold War era. Like China is becoming more and more capitalist by the day. Because why? Because they're finding that, oh, you can do business a little bit more effectively when you can allow your companies to go and, like, I don't know, make deals, and the state's not controlling every single aspect of it. And I mean, it's the same thing for Russia. It's the same thing for a lot of different countries. And so, like, I kind of see it. Like, I kind of see, like how you have these dinosaurs that are just like, oh, it's like the perpetual like enemy is always going to be communism, or it's always going to be socialism. And I do think like that creates the perfect vehicle when you have the capitalist versus socialist situation. Oh my goodness, the amount of control that you can have. And it really is a great distraction from the actual problems and the actual symptoms that we have in this economy, right?
Well, I mean that it has been a major distraction away from the solution. That's what it is. I mean, we have this, to use the Marxist term, a dialectic. Well, it's capitalism or socialism. And, the billionaires are using the capitalist socialist dialectic to keep their form of crony capitalism in power. And it's working really well because they own both parties. And I think it's time that people on the free market side wake up and start saying, okay, well, we're not afraid of socialism anymore because it's it's about as big a threat to our health as rickets or malaria or whatever, or male pattern baldness.
I do want to bring up a real quick question here that's specific to you by David. Do you see the housing market having essentially a major crash by 2030? Not to put you on the spot.
I know. One of the things I've noticed is that the housing prices have already gone down, both in real terms and in sticker prices. Just by the Federal Reserve raising interest rates from 2023 on. I think that'll continue. But the Federal Reserve is going to suppress interest rates again. The billionaires always win. So I think we're going to go back into the same asset price rising thing again. Not as bad as before because it's just not going to work. They can bring interest rates back down to zero, but it's not going to do the same thing.
Yeah.
So I don't know about a major crash. I don't know what that means, but I do think in the next couple of years, we're going to see housing values continue to decline and probably delinquencies and foreclosures go up as well.
Sure.
And with the worsening economy too. But I don't know about a major crash. I don't know. I wouldn't predict that. I wouldn't predict that.
Well, and I know this was a while back too. We had actually briefly talked about this, I think, on one of the previous episodes that we had done. I think we had kind of covered the housing market a little bit on one of our previous episodes as well. And please correct me if I'm wrong, because it's been a while, but I think you had mentioned also that look, there might be this impulse to sell your home, at the height, like with the pricing being at the height, but really you shouldn't do that because it's not going to optimize what you can do down the road. As a matter of fact, it could put you in even potentially a worse situation as it pertains to like the interest rates and all of that, because people are very much pulled along by that's a good interest rate, or I can maximize what I can make off of my house right now, so why wouldn't I sell? And I don't know if you remember that that conversation in particular, but I believe that was kind of the vein you were trying to go in. So I figured I would try and bring that up and see if we could maybe follow this a little bit.
No, I think that's basically right. Compared to 2008, I don't see another crisis like that coming because, David had a follow-up question.
Yep.
But I think, I don't know. I lost my train of thought. How's that for,
yeah.
That's what I get for drinking tea, not whiskey.
Oh no. Yeah, well, I mean, to be fair, I'm drinking my vice because I'm out of coffee. I drank a ton of coffee today, so I have to go to an energy drink. I'm not saying I have a problem with caffeine, but I might have a problem with caffeine. Not that it helps my cognitive ability.
I love coffee. Love coffee.
But it's, I guess, just kind of following this theme. Look, I mean, you have people that are 100% like they are the. It's the inverse of like the never Trumpers. It's like the always Trumper. Like Trump is never wrong, right? Like they are riding this. They will ride the bandwagon to the grave. And you have people that are 100% just like, oh, this, this 50-year mortgage idea, like it really is revolutionary. It's going to help younger people, tying the younger people in the housing market together to keep continuity. But it's just like, no, like, I don't know, but like, I don't think that's how the math works on this. But you have people that are overwhelmingly convinced, like, yeah, but it'll take a little bit off and it will help younger people get into a home. It's like, oh my goodness, like that's not how this works. But I guess if like that's the way you're going to see it, then I don't know that I'm going to convince somebody to change their mind if they're that invested. But to you and me and many others, I mean, it really doesn't math out, right? It's
well, I mean, that's the basic point I've been making for the last year or so, which is the market price for housing is not the sticker price. It's the monthly payment. It's the monthly payment. So if the standard goes from 30-year mortgages to 50-year mortgages, the monthly payment's just going to go up by the same amount. And the banks will get it, because it'll be supply and demand, and it'll go up to that. Right. And what'll happen is, in the short term, a few people will be able to get into a mortgage that maybe wouldn't be able to get into one. But in the medium and long term, they'll be stuck in these mortgages owing twice as much.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah.
In the form of not just interest, but also principal. Going forward, and it's just not a good idea. It's just not a good idea. The sticker price is not the market price. It's the market price is the monthly payment, and the monthly payment is the sticker price times the interest rate. So, and a lot of people say, well, just lower the interest rate. Well, we saw what happens. It just increases the sticker price. It's right. The best thing is to just let the markets determine the interest rate.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. And, there was so I don't remember if you happen to follow her at all on any of the socials or anything like that. But Chris Ann Hall, who I absolutely love, I think she's a very intelligent woman. And I would equate her with like at least about as close as we might potentially get with like one of the founding mothers, Mercy Otis Warren, perhaps. But she had made a couple retorts on X because so many people were just like, no, this is going to be great. It's going to be perfect. She's like, what about condemning the future to debt slavery? Are you people not fundamentally understanding here? Like, and I wish I could find the math that she did, but she's like, no, like this is the breakdown of it. You're only negating like $300 at most. And she's like, and before you know it, it's going to be pointless anyways to do the math because you're just going to be paying more or the equal amount anyways. So she's like, you can't, as she points out often, she's like, you can't be this dense. Like that's not how the math works. And but I think she's right, and it's not just for homes. It's not just for like mortgages, but I mean. And perhaps this is going to start creeping into the CR conversation here too, and tying that in. But it is essentially kicking the can down the road, eschewing a sense of responsibility and tying the future generations to essentially this perpetual debt slavery, because people are they're not willing to, or they don't really care about the ramifications of what the next few generations are going to have to take on. It's what can I do for myself right now that's going to make the most effect? And there was I wish I could remember the exact quote, and I know I'm probably butchering this, but I think I think it was Jefferson who brought up, like, essentially, like, liberty's not won in more than increments of like inches, right? Like we have to take what we can get, but we have to do this by inches. We have to look at the long game. We have to see down the road, or we're just going to condemn everybody past us to the same, if not worst potential outcomes. And I think that's kind of the point that Chris Ann was trying to put across to people.
Yeah, so I think you're right. Trump is, he is grasping at straws. Oh, 50-year mortgage. Oh, I'll give you a $2,000 tariff bonus. Yeah. I'm like, okay, I'll put it.
Merry Christmas.
I'll put that in my bank account right next to my $5,000 Doge bonus. I mean, oh, you didn't get one? You didn't get one? Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
I think it's about as credible as the Doge bonus.
Right. Yeah. I still haven't seen the money, so and I'm pretty sure I would have known if I would have gotten about $5,000 deposited in my account. There's actually a funny meme or image that's going around right now on social media to where everybody's just like, oh, my $2,000 cleared, and then it's showing all of these deductions, and then like $14,000 that comes in from OnlyFans, and that's kind of the running joke, is like this person is like maximizing the profit by essentially like prostituting themselves.
Yeah.
So I mean, but my gosh, I mean, it really is becoming this crazy like cyclone of just like I think just it overwhelmingly incoherent ideas and all of the the abyss of X, right? Like that's their favorite thing. That's the administration's favorite thing. Whether it's like Trump himself or whether it's Kash Patel or Bongino or whoever it is from the administration and some in Congress, they love to go on X and they love to just be like, oh, like we're winning so much. It's like, I don't think you are. Like typically, if you're doing really well, like this, the fruits of your labor will typically tend to show. And you having to come on X like every single day in almost kind in like the self-masturbatory way is not very indicative of somebody or an administration of people who are winning. And I really get the sense that they're trying to push this super hard, especially when it comes to the economy, because that's what they want to see. But you and I both know, simply because you want something to be the way it is does not necessarily make it that way. All will, casting just this large shadow or sicking people of Congress on people like Thomas Massie or Rand Paul, or people that are trying to speak reason, truth to reason in all of these different things. And and yet they're the worst people to exist on the planet. Like how dare you like say no to our budgets, and how dare you, come out and say that you're against this or you're against the administration. And Tom, as well as I do, right? Like they're not America first, because if you're not cucking yourself out to another country or doing the things that make you look good, then certainly you can't be with us. I think that's how that works, right?
Yeah, that's how it works. You have to go along and do what they say. Otherwise, they come after you, as Marjorie Taylor Greene and Thomas Massie and Rand Paul are finding out. And I'm not even a big defenders of most of them. I mean, like I like Thomas Massie, but and Rand Paul's pretty good. But I mean, they at least have some principles. The rest of them are all sellouts.
Yeah, no, and I think that's the important thing is like, it's just like, look, I think people can like certain individuals. I think Massey's a pretty decent guy. I think he's principled, like you said, and Rand is the same way. But I think the other thing too, that especially when you look at the administration and them trying to primary these people, the difference between supporters, I think, of Massie and Rand is the fact that they don't have this cult-like adherence. Like they don't like them because of the fact that like, they hold this mystique. They like them because they're, the principled people, or at least as principled as you can be in a cesspool like Washington. And, and I think that that's why they continue to get elected. And then when you look at the quality of people that they're trying to run against, Massey and Rand, and now they're going to, there's this vocalization of trying to primary Marjorie Taylor Greene, which I don't know. She's whatever she is. I'm not impressed, but it becomes this thing to where it's just like, look, like you guys are missing the forest for the trees. Like you are blatantly ignoring all of these points that these people are trying to bring up. And more importantly, a lot of the points that Americans are trying to bring up is, notwithstanding economic, but like foreign affairs, like, whether it's like Ukraine and Israel and so many other things. It's like, no, like you're doing all of the things that people voted for you to not do. And not only are you debasing the currency, but you're debasing your own base, like you're throwing it all to the wind. And they come at it with, I think, this hubris of like, oh, well, surely it's going to work out, right? Like it's all just going to, we'll forget about this in a year, Tom, and we won't have to come back and look at it because these people will forget. But I don't know that that's going to be the case this time around. I really don't. I don't think people are.
Especially since the CR only lasts till I think January 31st. So yeah, it's only a little bit after Christmas.
Right. And that's, and you're still seeing a lot of people, and I'm not bringing it up because I want to be relevant. I'm bringing it up because it is still an ongoing thing. But like you look at the Epstein thing, right? Like that has not gone away. And a huge portion of, Congress trying, who is it? Johnson? Is it Johnson that's still the speaker? I think, he's really been trying to avoid this whole thing with Massey about Epstein. And, because it's like, it's inconvenient, or as Trump says, like, who's even talking about this guy anymore? This creep, he's not relevent. But it's like, no, like it seems like the laundry list.
The recent thing that where he went after Massey for getting remarried after his wife died.
Oh yeah. I saw that, and it's like, dude, somebody pointed out, oh gosh, I wish I could remember who it was, but somebody pointed out, they're just like, wow, that's rich from a guy who has faithful issues, with some of your exes or some of your former wives. And it's crazy, dude, like this is, let's just try and stay on top of the subject, I don't know. It's really, I think they're creating the cyclone of circus to really try and deviate from all of these things, because let's be honest, I mean, economically, foreign policy wise, and amongst many other things, it is not going good for the Trump administration. And they are, even though you have some really diehard people that are saying, no, this is fine. Like, it's all you guys that are crazy. We're certainly not floundering, but like, look, I mean, they are, for all intents and purposes, at least from what I can see, like they are hemorrhaging a lot of support, and it's going to be a rough next 3 years, I think, for them. And I don't know how they turn this around. I mean, short of, if they really wanted to fix the economy, and I know a few other people had pointed this out, in various posts, but it's just like, look, like, okay, here's a great idea. You want to help the younger generation. You want to help some of these, some of the down and outs and the destitutes. Like, let's start with one of the things you talked about, which is nullifying the income tax, like that there's a good starting point, or let's take a look at property tax and maybe start trying to deal with that. But no, instead, we get 50-year mortgages, $2,000 checks, and a continuing resolution, and an exponentially still growing military industrial complex budget that I don't know how many people have seen that, but that's slated to go up even more beyond the 1 trillion now. So it's like, where does it end? And I do think to some, and I apologize. I'll end my diatribe here, but I do think that's also where Venezuela is going to start to kick into, and some of that stuff is they need a distraction from all of the domestic problems, and they're realizing they're not getting it with Palestine anymore and in Israel, and they're not getting it with Ukraine, so they have to justify it by blowing boats out of the water in a massive buildup outside of Venezuela. At least that's my opinion. I don't know if others share that idea, but I digress.
Well, if they're going to go vote on the Epstein files on Tuesday, we'll probably have war on Monday.
Yeah, that's yeah. The matter of fact, Josie, the redheaded libertarian, said that. She's just like, all right, everybody, I hope you're ready for another war, because if all this stuff drops the way that we're thinking it's going to, then we're gonna, we can send our sons and daughters to go die in the jungles of Venezuela, and it's crazy, dude, because you got people that are just like, yeah, pretty much they're just like, yeah, I'd send my son and daughter, not a big deal. It's like, you people are depraved. You're absolutely depraved. Yeah, but I guess refocusing a little bit, on like the economic front, because I think that there is, there's obviously a lot to talk about, right? But before we started this, I was talking to you about how I was starting to make a little bit more of a foray and educate myself on Austrian economics. I had been pretty familiar with it, and I understood some of the basic concepts, but the more and more I look into it, the more involved I get into it, it's only winning me over even more. And, when you look at the way that it's set up and you look at a lot of some of the basic, I guess the core fundamental portions, where you have praxeology, which is like the science of human action. You have things like, I have a list here because I don't know. I'm not Scott Horton. I don't remember things, date for date. But you have subjective value theory. You have the price system as information. You have time preference. You have, in addition, like the notion of unhampered markets. And, when you start looking at the differences or the variations of the Austrian style versus like Keynesian, and I mean, it's almost like once you've researched it and you've looked into it, it's just like, oh my gosh, like the Keynesian approach is just a sheer dumpster fire, and when you start looking at like the boom bust cycles, for instance, right, to where like, hey, like the bust is the correction to some degree, right? Like it is part of that correction phase. And that's the thing that they try to prevent. So, and you can take this wherever you want to go, but knowing that, it's almost like they don't want to fix the problem, Tom.
Well, Keynesian theory came out in the middle of the Great Depression, at a time when the economy was bad and people were calling to government for solutions.
Yeah.
And Keynesian theory said government can make the solution. So what did it do? It printed money. It made work. It spent money. It borrowed and created deficits and debt.
Yeah.
And it created all these boom and bust cycles. There was no way to disprove it at the time because it hadn't really been done. But since then, if you look at the econometrics of it, it's been a disaster. The economic growth in the United States is half of what it was before we had a Federal Reserve. The economic growth rate, and it's almost half of what it was before we left the gold standard in 1971.
Sure. Yeah, it's it is really amazing that when you allow something enough time to really kind of go through the motions and precipitate certain results. I mean, just stepping back and looking at like all of the things that have come forth from like the Keynesian approach of economics, it not only doesn't bear fruit or generate fruit, but it really, like, at least to me, when I step back and I look at it, it's just like, no, this is just dumb. Like, this is just, it's just a very inefficient way of doing things. And I mean, it might be beneficial for those in power, but in the end of the day, like even then, it's like you're still not creating an economy to where you really tend to benefit a whole lot either, because it eventually gets to a point to where it's like, oh, like we're kind of at a fever pitch of a problem here, to where you have prices that go up or you have prices that go down, and then there's a disparity between what people can and can't do. Whereas like if you allow people to kind of go into the market to produce things, to come through on like contracts or be able to deal with each other, and you're not sitting there trying to subsidize failure. It's like, no, like that's going to produce more results, and you're going to have a little bit more stability, even if things go bad, with more of the Austrian way of doing things, versus if you're constantly trying to control things, as it's kind of been explained. It's like, no, you have these elites that like think that they know how things are going to work, but you can't possibly suss that out. Not the way that the Keynesian approach even remotely starts to try and go after these problems, right, in terms of economics. So, I mean, what say you in regards to that there, Tom?
No, that's true. I mean, if you look at like my next to last article for the Libertarian Institute was on interest rates. And, it's funny. I was writing the article at the same time Joseph Solis Mullins was writing a similar article for the Libertarian Institute. His got published first. I hadn't quite submitted mine by the time his got published, but I was almost done with it. And one of the ideas was the commonly accepted idea of interest rates is, gee, lower interest rates stimulates the economy. Why?
Yeah.
Well, because people will take out more loans, and that'll they'll invest more and build more of their businesses. But then when you think about it, well, wait a minute. A loan involves two people, not one person. Yeah, more people will be willing to take out a loan, but it also requires a lender,
right,
who's willing to make the loan. Are they more willing to make the loan if their interest rate is lower? Does that make sense? And then you start thinking, well, what about would if I were to offer you 5% interest on a factory in Kansas, or 8% interest on a factory in Singapore, and they both have the same risks, which one would you take? Unless you're super patriotic, you take the one in Singapore.
Yeah.
And so what it does is you suppress the interest rate, it chases capital abroad, or it creates a rush to asset prices. And and that's really like all of the research, all of the the background to, interest rates help the economy. All of that is based on not on the GDP growing or the economy or wages growing, but on asset prices growing. So yeah, of course it's going to drive asset prices, because people are going to use debt to buy assets, and the asset prices are going to grow just because there'll be more, and that's why real estate has gone up. That's why the stock market's gone up. But it doesn't mean that the society as a whole is wealthier. I mean, maybe a few billionaires are, but that just changes who has the wealth. It doesn't change the wealth.
Right. And I think also when you look at Austrian economics as the preferred economic model, right? Time preference is one of those conversations that comes up. It's considered to be a pretty important, albeit I think relatively, at least how I understand it, is a relatively misunderstood disposition, to where you have a lot of people that prefer more of like a high time preference, right? But in the end of the day, what you get with a higher time preference, at least as I've started to understand it, is it typically has, it's more impulsive, you accrue more debt, you have this drive of consumption, and of course there's several other factors. But with a lower time preference, what you get as a trade-off is you get a little bit more stability. You have the tendency to have a little bit more or rather a better long-term prosperity, and it's a little bit more kind of deliberate in approach, to where when you're looking at products, it's the difference between the immediate product at times and the product that potentially you could get in the future. And when you allow people to make those decisions and you allow the market to be able to kind of do what it does, it will gear itself either towards like, okay, like maybe this product does make more sense, or we could wait a little bit and we could have a more superior product, whatever the case is, down the road. And I think that's also kind of where the time preference area comes in as well. So when you're looking at a variety of different conversations between Austrian economics and the Keynesian approach, I think time preference is another big driver, no?
Oh, for sure. I mean, some people, even non-Austrians, would argue that time is money.
Yeah.
I mean, time is the ultimate money, because it's it's how much you're willing to put into it. Time preference is a huge thing, and people have different time preferences, and that's fine. I mean, like, the Austrian view of value is subjective, because some people might not want to prefer a long-term outlook. I mean, some people,
Sure.
they might look at their genetics and say, look, I'm only going to live to 55 or whatever.
Right.
I'm going to live my life to 50. No, I mean, I'm serious.
Yeah.
Or
yeah.
I mean, to use an extreme example, Schindler's List. Oskar Schindler used up all of his wealth, to save the Jews. He wasn't looking to save, he wasn't looking to go to the 1960s. He used every bit at that time, because that was the point. So
sure.
I mean, you never know. I guess that's my point.
Yeah, no, and I appreciate when you brought up the subjective value too, because I think to really kind of put that into a nutshell, it is essentially the equivalent of like, well, like if you have a person that lives on a lake, they might not value the trade of water necessarily as much as somebody who's in the desert, or if you have a person that's in the metropolitan area, maybe the idea of like firewood isn't necessarily as valuable to a person who lives in the forest who might need that because they don't have as many amenities or whatever the case is. And so when you look at the subjective value, it's you're evaluating like what are the needs of the people in a given area or a given location or whatever the case is, or a given environment, and then potentially being able to meet those needs. And I think and perhaps I'm a little bit off in my explanation, but that's how I've understood it, at least. And it's like if you don't have an economy that can adapt to that to that situation, then I feel like you're just an economy that's just trying to like, oh well, they're going to like this and like they're going to find use in it. It's like, yeah, but the guy in the desert doesn't need more sunshine, right? Like the guy needs water. He's going to die of thirst, right? And I really do feel like when you look at the approach of the type of economy we have today, like they will almost guilt trip you into buying more sun, Tom. They're not actually trying to like engage you with like the product that like makes the most sense, where you could potentially have a better outcome. It's just like, nope, you're going to get more sun. We're going to repackage it. It's called a heating lamp. And whether you like it or not, and this is just the way it's going to be, instead of like this perfectly good, like H2O that we have over here. Cause like, you don't need that at all. It's essentially, it's failing to read the room, I feel.
Well, that's what was it that, not Hazlitt, shoot. He said that it's the presumption of the pretense of knowledge by, Corsair. Come on, comments. Come on, rescue me here.
See, no, you should have had the whiskey, Tom.
Like, no, Mises and Mises and like he's the only other one who won a Nobel Prize. That was a key guy. I can't believe it. I turned 60 and I'm losing my brain. It's a T. It is the T. Yes.
Oh,
Yeah.
oh no. You know, the thing is
But
I have a feeling you're going to remember it here probably in a couple of minutes, and you'll be like, wait a minute, stop
yeah.
everything we're
No,
doing. This
the
is what
point
it
of
is.
it. The point of it is this: is that we pretend we think we know what everybody needs. That is the pretense of knowledge.
Yeah.
Hayek. Thank you, Hayek. Nobody, and I didn't get that from the comments. It just came into my brain.
I knew you were going to get it.
Yeah, Friedrich von Hayek won the Nobel Prize for economics. He's the first Austrian to do so. I mean, there's been a few others since then, not too many. James Buchanan and a few others, but his whole thing was, central planning is the pretense of knowledge that we know what everybody's individual desires are, and we don't, because they're all individualized persons and they rank them differently. I mean, even identical twins, you might think, they just give them both vanilla ice cream. Nope, one likes chocolate, one likes vanilla. It doesn't matter.
Yeah, and I think that I think when you look at like the individual and you look at individual needs and to your point, I think that's where that and tell me if I'm butchering this, but I think that's where praxology is kind of where it comes into play. Is like this idea of like you're looking at the economy not as like humans being aggregate necessarily, but it is really just it's this human action, right? Like you're looking at people as human beings and certain needs and certain desires and certain wants and all of these different things. And it's like, whereas like what I'm going to need to make it through my day is going to be different from you or different from any of our listeners here. Like we all have different needs, wants, desires, or whatever the case is. Again, it's going back to that point too, to where if a man has a house and he just built this house and it's a brand new house or whatever the case is, he doesn't need a realtor to come over and try and sell him another house. What he might need is maybe like a contractor to be like, hey, like I noticed you have this house and like, do you have like a good utility connection or whatever the case is? I mean, most houses have that, but it's like, it's the idea of like being able to have something available that somebody actually needs versus like, I'm going to sell this guy another house. It is very much an individualized basis, but and I think that people have this idea of just like, oh, well, like if we have an economy that's built on something like that, it can't possibly succeed. And it would be impossible to, even meet a demand like that. But really, like, I think, from the way in the disposition Austrian economics kind of goes at it and in a lot of the, principles in a lot of the methodology of of what's described, it really isn't that hard. And it's not overly complicated. It's quite, compared to Keynesianism, it's quite simplified, no?
Well, again, it's simplified from the standpoint of, the central planning, because but we don't, we provide, the market provides more choices.
Yes.
If there's a demand for something, I mean, if you want something to improve your house, you just go to Home Depot and they have, I don't know how many thousand products. And if you can't find it there are building supply companies that have other thousands of products, and Amazon and blah, blah, on and on. You can order from Australia or New Zealand or China, whatever, wherever you want to order.
Right.
And it's, and if the product doesn't exist, you can get it made on a 3D printer. I mean, it's today, pretty much any kind of a need can be met. And that's the market in action.
Yeah. It's I think that's a really great way of putting it. And again, it's I'm really I guess the only thing I can really say on the Austrian economic side at this juncture is like I would encourage more and more people to actually explore it, take a look at it, learn about it, learn from it, learn from people like Hayek and many others, because once you start down that path, look, I'm not saying everybody's going to ascribe to it, right? Obviously, that's not my expectation, but it's the idea of, having something else, having another perspective that you can walk away from and be like, okay, like this is an option, you know, like this is a potential way that we could go. And if you allow people to at least have the information and introduce them to it, they can start to do a comparison of like, okay, like what is actually going to be more advantageous, you know, to myself or whatever the case is. And I think at least most people that I know that have explored or are exploring Austrian economics tends to find that the Austrian economics form of economics or market is going to be, it's not only feasible, but typically it's more prosperous in the end of the day. And a lot of that is allowing the markets to do what they do, allowing companies to succeed or fail, and not subsidize them into like, well, they're gonna, Tom, these companies are gonna succeed. We just have to throw several $1 billion at them, and if we just give them one more shot, they'll be fine. You know.
Well, that's the thing. If you look at you know, the past, you know, one of the things that the Keynesians say, oh, we need, you know, the capitalist system fails, blah, blah, blah. Look at the Great Depression.
Yeah.
But you read even Ben Bernanke, he would say, well, the Federal Reserve created the Great Depression. All of the you know, the three worst depressions in American history were all during the Federal Reserve era, not before.
Yeah.
Not before it. So, I mean, you know, it's most of the problem is not that the free market goes off the rails. It's that the government correction goes off the rails. That's the problem. And that's really, that can be shown with econometrics. I mean, I know a lot of Austrians don't like to use data. They say you can't prove it like a science project or whatever. And that's true technically. But if you are someone who puts some faith in data, take a look at it, because it really does buttress the Austrian school view. Yeah.
Well said. You know, I kind of want to kind of pivot back to some, I guess, domestic things and the administration, if you'll humor me or allow me to do that. You know, there's some recent talk about tariffs and about how Trump is now he's now considering taking tariffs off of things like coffee beans and a few other commodities that we have, because apparently, apparently it's not beneficial to people. So he's just we're just going to renege on those tariffs as if we haven't seen that before, and you know. And it's just going to be fine again, you know. Where I guess walk us through, if you would. Where are the tariffs at this point? Like, what the heck is going on with the tariffs? It seems like every other month he's throwing something on to a degree that makes zero sense, and then he's pulling them off, and then he's throwing them back on because he's like, well, I don't want to take all the tariffs away, but I have to put some on. And that's, by the way, if I'm wrong, I think that's where he's also talking about getting the $2,000 checks from, right? It's like, oh, we're generating so much revenue from the tariffs. It's so great. Okay, Tom, you just don't realize how great it is. You know, it's like, what the heck is going on here?
I don't know. It's almost like he's taking, you know, this combination of meth and Adderall, and you know, he's
been hanging out with Zelensky too long.
Up late at night saying, "Oh, this is perfect," you know, and coming up with these harebrained schemes every 2 a.m. But the tariffs themselves, they're before the Supreme Court. They'll probably be struck down 9-0 because there's no constitutional justification for the president just willy-nilly doing them on Truth Social,
right,
at 2 a.m. in an Adderall-fueled Truth Social rant. And there's like, you know, to say that, you know, coffee tariffs are necessary for the national security is probably not credible. I would think. I would think. I don't know.
Yeah, I don't,
You know,
I don't know.
I don't know. Maybe it would seem to me. I don't know. Maybe there's some strategic coffee reserve that we don't have. I don't know. I know I'm drinking tea right now, but I could be. But I think that's going to be struck down by the Supreme Court. So he's grasping at straws right now
Yeah.
for a way to muddle the thing, and I think that's part of the reason why he's talking
Yeah.
about the $2,000 Trump tariff rebate, because
Right.
a lot of these importers are going to be looking for rebates if the
Yeah.
taxes are found to have been unconstitutional, which they will be.
Yes. Yeah.
And the irony is, it's all his justices that are the most skeptical. It's Gorsuch,
Right.
who Trump avoided, and the others. So it's going to be a disaster for him.
Yeah. Yeah, I think the more and more that I continue to watch all of his policy, whether it's Hegseth, whether it's Patel, whether it's Bongino, whether it's Rubio or whomever. I mean, my goodness, like it I don't know if you get this same impression as I do, but it seems like so many of the policies and so many of these things that are occurring are just becoming more and more detached and incoherent from reality. Like I don't know why, but it's just like I sit back and I look at this and I'm like, you can't. There's no way. Like, this is not a serious. This is not a serious proposal. You're not actually serious about like what it is that you're saying. And when I sit and I open up the news or whatever, and I look at a variety of different news sources and I see more on tariffs, or I see the Venezuela thing, or I see whatever. It's like, what is even going on? What is the state of the administration? And I haven't even hit on Congress in general, right? Like, Congress is a dumpster fire. This administration thinks that that somehow that they're going to convince the mass of people more so at 2 a.m. in the morning with incoherent tweets and just psychobabble that their policies are good. I mean, I'm almost lost, to be honest. And I tend to think that I'm pretty decent at following patterns, and I'm pretty decent at trying to understand certain things, but it's getting to a point to where, like, I don't even know where they're going anymore. It's almost like we're locked into a ride that we can't actually get out from, and we just have to kind of sit through it. And just to put one more little sprinkle on top of all of this, I don't know if you've seen some of the recent news about some of the pretty high-level scandals, and obviously all of us knew about the corruption in Ukraine, but to the point now to where the EU and some in the United States are like, wait a minute, are you implying that senior officials in Kiev were actually fraudulently like laundering money? And it's like, yeah, like everybody knew this. Like, everybody knew this, like, pretty much since post 91. Like, everybody knew that the Ukrainian government was filled with a bunch of hyper corrupt bureaucrats, and you ignored it because you had a proxy war to fight. And now the EU is, it seems like in the US are like, wait, we actually got to start trying to account, because they say they're not going to give them more money. They will, but they have to try and save some face, because now it's entirely public. And it was I think one or two people that were in very close proximity to Zelensky that oversaw a lot of the financial areas within the Kiev regime, and they got caught with their hands in the cookie jar. And now Zelensky's like, well, we can't have this. We got to try and figure this out. But I mean, that it's just one more thing that just it seems like is just added to the pile of refuse on the Trump administration's desk. And it's getting hard to figure out what the heck is even going on anymore.
Yeah, I mean, they're just slashing on any scrap of good news. It's like,
Yeah.
oh, guess what? The price of beans went down by 3 cents in the last 45 minutes.
Yeah.
Like, Trump has brought down inflation. It's like, no, no, dude, he hasn't. He hasn't brought it down. I mean,
Yeah.
I'm not convinced inflation is going crazy, but he hasn't brought
Yeah.
it down. No, you're clinging to a delusion.
Sure.
That it's the same thing that the Biden administration was doing for 4 years, saying, "Oh, you're better off than you ever were. It's the strongest economy ever."
Yeah.
And if you don't think that, you're stupid. And that's why his polls are in the dumpster, because he's
No,
basically
100%.
he's calling everybody stupid. And it's
Yeah.
like, no, it's not that good. I mean, is it as bad as 2008? No, not close.
Right.
But the economy is not good,
Yeah.
and everybody knows it.
Yeah. And and again, going on that point that was made earlier, it doesn't matter how much you try to say that something is good. Like I think people are just, I think most people are still relatively rational, and they're just like, no, like, we're not buying it anymore. The lie is up. Like, you can't lie about this anymore. Like, the results speak for themselves. We see what's going on. And like you said, like, it's like, oh, well, you're all anti-American and you're not America first. And you don't, if you don't go with us, then like, this is the way it is. It's like, yeah. Like, it doesn't even have an effect anymore. Like, all of you bureaucrats are the exact same type of person, and it's all the same psychobabble. It's all the same narcissistic behavior that we've been subjected to for decades after decades. We get it. This is the only thing you have to say, because everything is indefensible. Like, you can't even have a sense of responsibility about any of this. And your only way of avoiding that is by, again, like, not to be graphic, but it's just the self-masturbatory hubris of just like, everything is so good. It's like, stop filleting yourselves and just come back to the sense of reality and just admit you screwed up, or you're wrong, or it's not going well. And then maybe you might bring some people back to your side. But until that happens, like, the trust in general government, not just Trump, not just the general trust in things at this juncture is so low that honestly, like, I had brought up perspective. Like, there's a reason that people like Mamdani got elected. And if you're going to have, like, both Democrats and Republicans, if you're going to ignore the perspective or fail to understand why people opted for a person like Mamdani, then you're not concerned about fixing anything. You're not willing to go after the root causes. You're not willing to actually identify what the issues are. You're just ignoring it, hoping that what you say is going to be a Band-Aid over it. And then you're just going to walk along and just hope everybody forgets about it. And unfortunately for them, that's not the case. Fortunately for us, maybe we're going to have, a potential better outcome, because people just aren't buying it anymore. They're not good salesmen. Their lies suck, and they're not, for the most part, they're not even lying anymore. They're just walking away because they have nothing better to put out there. So that was my mini rant. I apologize.
There we go. Yeah.
Yeah. It's comedy that writes itself. So, yeah, I don't know if you have anything you want to add to that. Otherwise, I was going to say we could start to wrap it up a little bit. We could do some closing comments here. And
Sure.
then also, I definitely do want to make sure to give you another plug, both at the Libertarian Institute, but also for your podcast. So we'll go with closing comments, and then we'll just kind of swing into some final things and then hit the outro.
Oh, so I go first. Okay.
More than welcome to. So
no, I think you hit the point when you said Trump is just, he's just ranting about trying to, score some points with the populace, but it's not working because the economy's not working for him. And you know what? I could even say in his defense, the president doesn't really have a lot of say over the economy.
Oh,
He
for
can't
sure.
spend
Yep.
money technically, but to the extent that he has power over the economy, he's tried, not deliberately, but he is messed it up. He's messed
Mm-hmm.
it up by increasing the deficit. He's messed it
Yeah.
up by uh, by raising the tariffs and creating international trade chaos. He
Sure.
has messed it up uh, by taking upon himself all legislative powers.
Yeah.
He's he's he, it's not his fault whether there's inflation or not.
Mm-hmm.
That's the Federal Reserve. But if he cheers on the Federal Reserve
Yes.
trying to lower interest rates, well, then he can take the blame, because
Yeah.
lower interest rates actually hurts the economy. Believe it or not a
Yeah.
lot, but a little bit, and it hurts the median worker and the working people's wages a lot. It helps the billionaires
Yes.
a bit, but on net, it's a slight negative. But if he's cheering that on, oh well, you get the blame.
Right.
That's what I say.
Yeah, no, and I think that's those are great points, and I do want to for kind of my closing points here. I remember when Scott Horton was on Judge Andrew Napolitano's show. I think 1 or 2 episodes ago. I think it might have been 2 episodes ago. But Napolitano was telling Scott Horton about a conversation he had one day with Trump. He had gone and met Trump, and Napolitano, him and Trump get along well enough. And, Napolitano asked him, he's like, well, hey, he's like, do you understand what the Constitution is? Have you read the Constitution? And Trump was basically just like, I don't need to read that. I don't have to read that. And Napolitano was like, what do you mean? Like, you should know what the heck it is that you're doing. You should know how the government runs. You should know all of these, these functions. He's like, and Trump's reply was simply, I have people that can read that for me and tell me what it's about. And I remember listening to Napolitano just be like, I was like, I didn't know what to say. I was aghast, like that. Like, that was the response. He's like, those were the responses that Trump presented. And he's like, what do you say when, like a person that very well, who happens to be the president of the United States, or I think it was during the time to his recent reelection. But still, the point being is like, I have people that read this and then they tell me what the Constitution. It's like, when I heard that on that episode, I was like, that right there to me is a pretty solid barometer of the type of individual that we're dealing with. And I don't say that lightly, but it's like, look, if you're not even willing, like, you tout the Constitution, you talk about freedom, you talk about liberty all the time in your campaign, and then this is the response that you have, like, it is such a soulless, baseless, principleless, like, at least constitutionally anyways, just disposit. Like, that tells me the type of person that we have. He doesn't care. And that just tells me also that if you don't care enough to understand the founding document, the thing that all of this country is built on, and you're just going to have somebody tell you what that document says, that just tells me that the Lindsey Grahams of the world are going to be like, oh no, Mr. President, we can go invade Venezuela because we have precedent that says this. When it's like, yeah, no, it all makes sense, So I just thought that was damning, and that episode, for whatever reason, it really stuck with me. And the reason I remembered that was because it was brought up on Provoked on Scott Horton and Daryl's podcast. And I was just like, oh, I forgot that was even a thing. And so I just I really I pray about it every single day. Like I hope, you know, the decent, well-minded people of this country continue to try and push, you know, for something better and for more liberty, for a better, you know, economic structure and in all of that. And I know that's a big wish, but and a big hope, but if that's the type of person that we're saddled with, all of this really does make a lot of sense for the incoherence, the crazy policy making, all of these different things. And it really does trickle down, you know, like you said, maybe, you know, he might not be directly necessarily responsible for some of the economic woes and stuff like that. But when you have somebody that nods approvingly, whether it's economy, whether it's war, whether it's whatever, it does make sense why he does that. Because if he doesn't, if he, like Napolitano said, it's only a few pages long. Like it's not hard reading. You know, if he's not going to take the time to even look at that, then it really does paint a pretty rough picture. But Tom, I appreciate you coming on and really spreading some more wisdom about the economic situation, chatting with me about a variety of different topics and issues in Austrian economics. I always enjoy having you on because I do tend to feel like I walk away with more than I came in with. And I hope that's the same mentality that a lot of people have too, that come by and watch the episodes. And speaking of episodes, let people know where they can find you. I know we talked about it in the beginning, but I want to do one more plug for you.
Yeah. You can read me at the Libertarian Institute and my own podcast, The Blue Collar Breakdown, on YouTube and Facebook and Rumble.
Perfect. Yeah. So go check him out, everybody. He does great articles. I really enjoy his podcast, and I think you guys and gals might too if you really enjoy seeing him on here. And go check him out at some of the other links too. I will do the very best that I can to have all the links down below here in a short amount of time for you guys to go check that stuff out and be able to see him on all of the areas that he does work on. Thank you, each and every person, for stopping by tonight, checking out the conversation, bringing your input, all of your thoughts, your questions, your comments. I really, really appreciate it. You guys are the ones that really help keep this thing moving forward and helping support the channel. So with that being said, go forth with liberty. And Tom, if you have a couple minutes, I will talk to you after the show here. So
sounds good.
I'm going to hit the outro. I hope you guys and gals have a great rest of your day, night, whatever it is, wherever you are. And we will see you next Saturday at 1700 on the Sentinels of Liberty.
Steel-clad fist, rise in the dark, shattered chains, ignite.